Nation of Fit in 10, welcome to day 44, and this is another strong, encouraging message for you to keep going. We've got 26 days to go, and as I mentioned, I think it was yesterday and possibly the day before, we can imagine that the challenge started today, and we're gonna sprint for 26 days. Not a long time, less than a month. Still a lot can happen, we know this. We've seen with a lot of you just what can happen in 2 weeks. So we know a lot can happen, and I want to remind you that you will not plateau in this challenge. It's a matter of keeping up the same enthusiasm that you had in the first couple weeks all the way through. All right, so I know that as the challenge goes on, I know this from experience, people tend to lose a little bit of that gas. And because it's hard, right? I mean, enthusiasm in the beginning is easy because it's just starting and there's that sudden change and there's that excitement. But as we go through day after day, it gets harder to maintain that consistency. So I'm going to encourage you right now, going forward, let's go pedal to the metal. Do your best to fulfill all of these pillars, including the fiber component that I put into your macro targets. So check that out. If you're getting a lot of real whole foods, you should be getting that fiber in regardless. Over the past 2 days, yesterday's video, the day before, I spoke about the exclusive benefits, general health benefits to weight training. Today, I'm going to speak about the reasons why you ought to weight train for fat loss. Okay, and I want to remind you here that I don't know if anybody in the challenge thinks this or not, but I've had this in the past. People tend to, I get this often. People associate weight training with this term bulk. And I want to remind you that, I guess first we should define bulk. Bulk is really the addition of some sort of tissue to the body, but usually we don't consider that muscle mass. Usually we consider this fat and or muscle. But the key here is fat. And the only way you are going to gain fat is by over-consuming food. That's the only way you're going to get fat. You're never going to get fat from weight training or any other form of exercise, okay? You will never get fat from energy output. It's just not going to happen. Outputting energy will not cause you to get fat or bulky, okay? Eating will cause you to get fat or bulky. So just remember that. Now, when it comes to the benefits of weight training, why do we want to weight train when we're trying to lose body fat? I mean, isn't weight training truly just about building muscle? Well, certainly that will play a part, but it's not just about that. And I did talk about some of these things yesterday. I did touch upon them. So, but there are some other reasons here, and I will reiterate what I talked about yesterday here. So let's go through it. Number one, muscle mass and metabolism. I think we probably all heard this right now, by now. Aside from your organs in your body, all your major organs, muscle mass is the number one determinant of your basal metabolic rate. That is, the more muscle mass you have, the higher your resting metabolic rate is going to be. The more energy you will burn at rest. So this is really, really important. But along with this, we are also increasing that reserve capacity for energy, right? Primarily glycogen, but even fat to some degree. Now, muscles don't store a lot of fat, but they can store some fatty acids. But when we have more muscle mass, we have more essentially real estate to use for storing sugar. And along with weight training, our body becomes better adapted to be able to store sugar without the usage of insulin. Okay, or I should say much less insulin. If you have sugar after weight training, you don't really need any insulin to get sugar into the muscle cells. And you may think, well, why does that matter? Trust me, it's good for your health. It's good for longevity. It's good for keeping you more insulin sensitive. That means that you require less insulin to do the job of essentially getting sugar specifically into the muscle cell. And this is a really, really good thing for your health. Very good for staving off any form of diabetes. Very good for reducing inflammation, etc. So these are all obviously positive benefits when you're trying to lose body fat, right? Because if we have more storage area for sugar, we have less chance of sugar being stored as body fat. Okay, number 2. So I did talk about metabolism, okay, but now we have got increased metabolic rate post-training. And this is different than an increase in your metabolic rate just from, let's say, doing exercise. Because if I go for a bike ride, let's say, and certainly I'm going to burn more energy than my metabolic rate, I have to cycle around, I've got to expend energy for that. That's going to increase my metabolic rate for that duration of the exercise. But what about after exercise? Well, this is one bonus to resistance training, in that the body has to restore itself to its resting state and has to adapt to the stimulus that it was given. So, and when it's going through this recovery, it's doing things such as balancing hormones, it's replenishing fuel stores, it's going through cellular repair, it's going through nerve innervation or reinnervation, and it's also going through a phase where it has to take in more oxygen to replenish what we call the phosphagen system. Okay, so basically it's doing all this stuff, and this requires extra energy in order for all these tasks to happen. And this happens post-training. So when you're going through recovery, so you can imagine when you're consistently training, you're consistently going through these training sessions, maybe not every day, but say every second day. And it takes time for this recovery to happen, sometimes days on end. So if you're always going through this, you're always going to be in a heightened metabolic state. All right, number 3. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I think I talked about this. This may ring a bell. Exerkines. So these are basically extracellular messaging molecules that are released by exercise muscles that literally go in and tear down fat out of the fat cell. They cause lipolysis of fat in the fat cell. So this is really, really important for aiding in reducing your body fat. And this only happens through doing very intense resistance-based exercise. The other thing that we tend to see with weight training too, especially if we're doing these big movements, deadlifting, squats, rows, etc., we see that there tends to be higher levels of, at least in the short term, higher levels of circulating testosterone and growth hormone. And this is obviously all naturally produced. This is going to be very, very helpful for having some positive benefit in terms of improving your body composition, burning fat, and building that lean body mass that we want, right? Okay, so one other thing I want to mention here, I did talk about this yesterday, but remember this. If you look at the data with people who diet, who are in an energy deficit, there is loss, and they're not weight training, there is about a 50% loss in fat and a 50% loss in muscle tissue. If you weight train, you are going to at the very least maintain your muscle mass, and this is a huge difference. So you can imagine the metabolic loss of just dieting alone versus dieting and weight training. Okay, and that again is just from the maintenance, if not the building of muscle tissue. The building of muscle tissue can happen for those people who are new to weight training. It's certainly not going to happen with somebody like myself who's been training for many, many years. All right, let's get to the message of the day. On this day 44, and this is one of my favorite ones actually. Do you know what the difference is between a master and a beginner? The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Failure is going to happen. Okay, however we want to. Okay, when I talk about failure, I'm talking about, essentially, falling off the horse, going through periods, going through these lulls where you may feel like you failed. Okay, this is normal. Sometimes this is something that we do on purpose, right? Or it's not. It's purely by accident. But this is all part of the process. Okay. Even your weight going up and down is part of the process. All of this is part of the process. The process is never a smooth road. Remember that. Any process, whatever you're working towards, it doesn't matter whether it's what we're doing right now in this challenge or anything else, it's never going to be a completely smooth and easy path. You're going to go through hardships. You're going to go through points where you feel like you're just not cut out for it, or it's just pointless, or you're just, you're going to try to talk yourself out of it. This is normal. As I've always said, the most important thing you can do is to keep going. All right? Positive energy, positive vibes, believe in yourself, for the love of God gives me gratitude, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.